You know that moment when you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is open your phone, jump on Instagram, X, or some other social media platform? And before you've had a chance to even fully wake up, you're already in a firestorm of intensity. And you think to yourself, I really got to stop doing this. It's depressing and stressful, and I should at least have breakfast first, right? Here's the hard truth: there's a reason your feed feels so intense lately, and it might not be entirely organic. And it's certainly not just because the world is chaotic, although there is truth to that as well. I'm talking about the outrage, the fear, the pressure to care about everything all at once, social causes and movements, the climate, politics, and the pressure to take a stand and act, all of it. The truth is, it's not always as it appears because the way stories are told and the tone of your feed, and even the urgency in a headline, it all parallels with strategies that go way, way back. Strategies rooted in real psychological studies. When you see things through this lens, you'll know that it's not random. There are actual studies behind this stuff. Experiments that tested how we react to fear, to urgency, to emotional overload. And the results of those studies, they're still baked into the content that we consume every day, in ads and headlines, in our algorithms. So, in this video, I'm going to break down three of those studies, what they uncovered, how they work, and how they're still showing up in the way we're being influenced today. And you're going to want to stick around for the last one because it's quite possibly the most shocking of the three and sheds a really harsh light on why our social media feeds are so intense lately. But first, let's zoom out for a sec because how did we even get here? Do you remember those scenes in Mad Men where Don Draper kept resisting the rise of psychology and research in advertising? That's because back in the 1950s and 60s, advertising started a big shift by incorporating psychological and data driven principles to understand and influence consumer behavior. So brands weren't just showing off what their product did anymore. They started to sell how it made you feel. Post war America had money, optimism, and tons of stuff to sell. So practical pitches like, here's why this vacuum is great, just wasn't landing anymore. So marketers turned to psychology, behavioral science, market research, and focus groups. An entire ecosystem emerged, all with one purpose: using science to influence human behavior. They wanted to understand why people make decisions and, more importantly, how to guide them to make a specific decision. And once they realized that emotion drives people more than logic, that was it. This was the unlock, and it's been the playbook ever since. So let's talk about these studies. First up, the scarcity effect. Back in 1975, a group of researchers set up a study of about 200 undergraduates to understand what makes something feel valuable. So here's what they did: they took two jars and filled them with the exact same cookies, same brand, same size, same flavor. I believe it was chocolate chip. One jar had 10 cookies, and the other jar had only two. Then they asked the participants to rate the cookies, and time after time, people said that the cookies in the jar with just two looked better, tasted better, and were simply more desirable, even though, again, they were identical. So, the conclusion that came out of this study: the researchers discovered that when there's not enough of something, our brains assume it's more valuable. So, it wasn't about quality, it was about availability and how easily we could lose it. This taps into a deeper concept in psychology called loss aversion, or what regular people call FOMO, which basically means the pain of losing something is psychologically greater than the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. And once marketers caught on to that, it was game over because now you see scarcity tactics everywhere. Just think of how often you see only one left in stock on Amazon, or we have 5 rooms left on booking.com. But here's the thing: it goes beyond ads. If you pay close attention, you can even spot it in headlines or even political campaigns. Scarcity, or when you feel that time is running out, you're about to lose something, that creates urgency. And urgency gets people to move. But urgency alone doesn't quite do the trick, right? Sometimes the real driver is fear. Let's get into our next study. This one's from 1953. Researchers at Yale University were trying to understand how fear affects behavior. So they tested it on a group of 200 high school students. They created three versions of a message about dental hygiene: low fear, moderate fear, and high fear, each with varying degrees of descriptions and images of the consequences of neglecting dental hygiene. all with the aim to see which level of fear motivates people to act. Now, here's what they found. You think the scariest version would have actually been the version to get people to act, right? But no, that group was actually the least likely to change anything because that level of fear just overwhelmed them and then they shut down. The groups that saw light and moderate levels of fear paired with a clear action step were actually the most likely to change their behavior. So, what does that tell us? Fear can work, but only if there's a clear action step to improvement. Now, where have we seen this in recent history? I could think of a global health scare that happened in 2020. That's right, this played out in real time during COVID. If you remember, early on it was pure overload, empty shelves at grocery stores, scary charts, etc. And some people panicked, but a lot of people just tuned out. Then, not long after that, the messaging shifted, right? Stay home, save lives, mask up to protect others, get vaccinated, protect yourself and your loved ones. And it was a message amplified across all of media, including on our social media feeds, among celebrities, and among government officials. Still rooted in fear, but now there was a direction and a clear action step. It gave people something that they could do, right? That strategy was right out of the 1953 playbook. But let's get to the real shocking study that I promised. This last one is going to be wild. So, back in 2014, a big social media platform, you know it as Facebook or Meta, published the results of a study where they quietly ran an experiment on a large group of roughly 600,000 users without their knowledge. For 1 week in 2012, researchers manipulated the news feeds of these users, making tiny adjustments to what showed up in their feeds. Some saw more uplifting positive content and some saw more negative content, and everything else stayed the same. So, what was the result? People started posting in ways that mirrored what they saw. So, when they saw more negativity in the feed, they tended to post more negative content themselves. And when they saw more positivity, they tended to post more positive content. This suggests that emotions can spread through social networks and therefore the algorithm. This is called emotional contagion, which is why this is known as the Facebook emotional contagion experiment. Now, getting to why our feeds have been so intense lately, let's not forget that negative content tends to drive up engagement. And we know this because of various studies that say so, but also because we have eyes and we can see it and feel it ourselves, right? By the way, if you want me to do a video explaining more about that, let me know in the comments. Now, if we pair the concept of emotional contagion with the rise in rage bait as a content strategy, that completely changes the game. Because when you know that strong emotions like anger and outrage drive engagement, and that engagement feeds the algorithm, suddenly amplifying those emotions isn't just reactive, it's contagious. It effectively steers the conversation and the tone. And it works because emotional contagion makes sure that once it starts, it spreads. So just remember, when your feed feels like a nonstop firestorm, the outrage, the anger, the pressure to react, to take a stand, to pick a side, it's all coming from a broader ecosystem of psychology, persuasion, and platform design. Scarcity creates urgency, fear drives compliance, and emotional tone spreads like wildfire. And once you start seeing them, you can take a step back, pause for a second, and decide how you want to respond instead of getting swept up in the emotion of it all. So you get to ask, is this really how I feel, or am I being guided to feel this way? That shift from reacting to reflecting, that's going to be the one source of power for all of us as we navigate this flood of information that we're getting. If you made it this far, seriously, thank you for sticking around. I'm still building this channel, but if you're into this kind of breakdown where I unpack how media, marketing, and messaging shape what we see and how we feel, then please subscribe to my channel to see my upcoming content. And by the way, shoot me a comment and let me know, what are your thoughts on this Facebook experiment? I was honestly shocked when I found out about it. Until next time, stay curious and stay grounded.